Hi, welcome everyone. We're actually in the studio. We're going to do a nice technical video here on paint colors, paint palettes, the palettes I use on a consistent basis on my YouTube channel here. I know many of you sometimes will have questions in the comments section, as well as I know some of my students here on YouTube, you'll email me and ask for color charts, and I send those out. And but I wanted to do a video on this to kind of help people that might want to do more paintings on my channel, and if I'm using different palettes and different paints, it might get a little bit difficult. So what I want to do is I want to use, this is our Extreme Beginners palette, the Oval 16, Prang Oval 16 palette that we're using here. That's what we're using now on a weekly basis, as well as you'll see me use my standard palettes that we've always used on my channel ever since, 5-6 years ago I started. But I wanted to use this palette and show you how you can mix to get the normal colors I use on an ongoing basis on the other videos that are, let's say, not beginners videos, but just our standard videos that we put out. And everyone can paint all the paintings here. I'm not trying to divide anybody. I'm trying to put on some more simple paintings for beginners with a more inexpensive and simple palette to start with, affordable, and not everyone that starts watercolor will stay with it or stick with it. So why go out and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on expensive art supplies if you can start out with a humble set of maybe $10-15 for a Prang set like this. Online you can get this, and it comes with a brush, and then all you need is paper, and you can really start, and you're already in business with watercolors, and you're starting out, and from there you just practice your drawing skills and painting, and you're all set. And then once you're painting for a while, maybe 6 months or a year, then you're going to start to branch out and maybe use different palettes. So this is kind of like my main palette that I really use a lot. It's an Anderson palette, aluminum palette. I took the lid off the other side so I can use this in our videos here like this. Normally I use the palette like this on our videos, but this is basically my full range of colors that I use on a constant basis. So what I'm going to do is, I've already made color charts of all my palettes that I use, and then I put in the colors that I use and I label them so I don't lose track, and I always load my palette the same way every time I'm changing a palette or getting a new palette, or if I'm washing out a palette and starting with fresh paints. I'll always refer back to my chart and say, these are how my colors are all set in my palette in order. Can you see I have them all labeled just like that all the way around? All the warm colors, the reds and the yellows on the left, and then as the colors get cooler, like the greens start to get cool, and the blues and purples, that's on my right side over here. And that's kind of like how I have my Prang set set up. The warms are on this side and the cooler colors are over here on the right. So basically it's the same method that I use to try to separate my colors, warmer on one side and cooler colors on the other. That's real simple philosophy, if you will. So this is a real simple breakdown of the colors I did a while back, and I think I did a video on this. So you could just take each of these colors, and they're somewhat close to the standard colors I use. So this one here is here. Basically, we could spin it like this, like that. So that's our alizarin crimson approximately, our cadmium red approximately, cadmium orange, and then we could kind of call that a raw sienna a little bit. It's an orange really. Cadmium orange light, let's say, cadmium lemon yellow, burnt umber here, olive green, somewhat of an olive green, and then over here sap green. So that's pretty much these colors here. And then if we transition over here, we have the viridian, which is a green, a cool green with lots of blue, and then somewhat of a cerulean blue here, French ultramarine blue there, ultramarine violet here, and then we have sort of a lavender color and a mineral violet color. I think I swapped these two, but this one's basically the lavender and this one's the mineral violet over here, which is a purple. And then the white and the black. Ivory black is pretty much this black in this palette. It's a warm black, more of a warmer brown tones, hues in that black. And then, of course, the white, which is, you know, a chalky white-looking paint there. We could call that white gouache, or just white paint like titanium white or Chinese white. So that's a real basic simplification of it. So I can leave this up here like so, and you can, you know, hit pause, or you can jot down these colors if you want. But it's pretty much, that's the way I have this palette set up. I arranged them again, warm on the, more or less this side over here, and then the cooler colors here or over on here. And basically it's set up like this. So these are actually the exact colors as they go. This side is over here, this side is over here. So now, that's the basics of it. Not doing too much overthinking on it. Now, if you want to mix your colors a little more and fine-tune them to get more of the exact colors we use on my traditional everyday palette that I'm always using, like that, all my colors, these are all my colors I use on a consistent basis. I have this palette that you just saw, and I have all my colors written down on there, here. Warms and cools over here. So what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll adjust these colors just a little bit to get more closer to the everyday palette that I use on my channel. So you can actually adjust these a little bit and get those almost exact colors that we use on a regular basis. And this way you could work on some of the, let's say, beginner series paintings if you wanted to, and then you just use your normal colors you're always using that we use, and you just, you know, if you get this palette and you purchase this palette, well, then you'll know what colors to sort of mix together to get a closer match to our normal colors, you know, starting over here, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, cadmium lemon yellow, yellow ochre, raw sienna, raw umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber, olive green, chromium of oxide, viridian, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine, French ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, mineral violet, Payne's gray, and ivory black. And then we have all the colors there. So we're gonna draw this chart, and we're gonna kind of just what I might do is I think it's that'll fit. So I can kind of measure this and say, all right, what do we have here? 1.53. All right, so I can use I'm going to make a rectangle here. So I'm going to basically draw the palette, and you can do this as well. A representation of your palette, any palette you might have. You might have a different palette and you might want to draw that. You draw it, you just take it, get the basic dimensions of it. This is really a elongated rectangle, the Anderson palette. And there's a specific amount of paint wells in it. So we're going to want to make sure we count them really carefully and try to space them evenly. So I'll just kind of show how I do it. You know, you can get a little more exacting. I'm not going to get, you can measure these all out if you're really good with math and science. You know, you can really get fine-tune this and say, all right, you can get a calculator and divide all the numbers and figure out how many spaces you need for all these here. I can do it more of a simple way, so I'll try that. And I'll just use the thickness of my ruler for my top row of paint wells, and then over here I'll do the same thing. Thickness of the ruler, maybe I'll make these a little wider. Might need a little more space there. Okay, so the first thing I do is I count up how many wells are here in this space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an odd number. If it was an even number, you could just make halves and keep going. So the best way to do this is, if you have an odd number of paint wells, you would just create one well first, like this, about where you think it's going to be, you know, if we're looking at this picture here. So that's 1. Then you just take this one here and you say I need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1 is done there. 1 is complete. Now 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I just have to divide these twice. Once, twice, and like that. And twice there. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the other one, the 5th one. So the 5th one you just add first, approximately what you think it's going to be. Approximate, and then it's easier when you divide in even numbers, so you have 2, 2, and 2. And now let's do the top portion. How many wells do we have up top? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15, well, 15 would be a division of 3 thirds. We do thirds a lot. Let's use the ruler, why not? Let's see if we can make this a little more simple. How many do we have here? 24, perfect. 8, 16, 24, so that's division. 8, 16, 24. And then we need 5 in each of these. So this one here we can say is going to be 5 in here, 5 in here, and 5 over here. Then we're going to do the same process we did here. So we need 5 wells in each of these thirds. 1 third, 2 thirds, 3 thirds. We need 5 wells in each one. Let's double check one more time. Better to double check our numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so we have 15 wells. 5 in each of these gives us 15. So we'll do it the same way we did it here. We'll create one, which we think is going to be about the size of the well, which is about that. And then we just divide that one more time in half, and then you divide that one more time. So that's really the simplest way I've found to do this. And again, we go over here, we make one well first, and then we say we need 4 more in here. So we divide this approximately in half, and then we go with another division of 2 there. Same thing here, we go 1 there, and now we need 4 more. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's really good. And then we took this one and we kind of divide it in half, like so. And so now we have the Anderson palette here, and we'll put a little for our thumb hole here. And that's our representation of the Anderson palette. So now we're going to take these colors and create, by fine-tuning these colors to match all the colors we need for our normal palette that we use on a consistent basis. So the beginner's palette can be easily fine-tuned here and there, just a little bit. We'll cover how we're going to do that to match the colors over on this palette. So what I'll do is I'm going to make the paint just a representation of the paint colors, like so. So these are going to be where the paints are at the bottom. And then we're going to put the paint over here on this, and then we'll have room to write in the colors. Okay, so that's going to be our palette drawn out, and this is great to do. I hope you'll do this at home when especially if you're just starting out in watercolor, or if you've been painting a while or even some years and you haven't created palette charts for yourself. These are great to do. They're fun to do. They're relaxing. No stress. You're not painting a painting or a composition. You're just having a fun time creating some paint charts, and you can maybe get a little more organized with your colors if you want, so you can kind of figure out, do I want to arrange it like Chris has it with warm colors on one side and the cooler colors on the other side of my palette, or do I want to do something different or swap it around and make the cools over here and the warm colors over here? Or you might just want to do it according to whatever works for you. You're the artist. You have to organize your colors, and I know many of you have your own ways you organize your palette with colors and the way you mix and everything like that. But I guess I'm just sharing the way I do it, and I'm sure we have a lot of great talent out there, many of you that have your own awesome ideas, and you can share that in the comment section, and just maybe other artists are always in the comment section looking at what we're talking about, and then if you put in your ideas and say, well, this is how I do my palette, that's really great too. We love comments here in the comment section. Everybody can learn and different ideas on how they organize their colors, their palette, maybe some ideas on how you might mix your colors. And so let's take a quick break, and once we come back, I'll start mixing and just kind of show you a real quick way to, just fine tune these colors a little bit and put a color chart together using the Prang Oval 16 colors, okay? Great to have you here, and if you're just brand new and never have been on this channel before, welcome. Thanks so much for coming by. Really glad you're here, and everyone else is really happy you're here too as well. We're all together, a team working on our watercolors on a constant basis every week, and so that's our main objective, is just trying to get in some practice time every week. If you can practice drawing 10-15 minutes every day, just pencil something on a piece of paper for 10-15 minutes, you'll have a huge advantage, because drawing is a little more challenging. Painting is not easy either, but it's a little less difficult than drawing. Drawing is more difficult, so if you can practice your drawing, you're going to have a much more fun time with watercolor, because we're always sketching first and then we're painting on top of our sketches for the most part. You don't always have to do it that way either. You might have your own kind of way of painting, and that's fine too. I'm not here to tell you have to do anything my way, or I teach it my way, and if you want to create a spin-off on your own of what I do, that's great too. Everyone's creative, and everyone here can adjust their own art the way you see fit. So I'll be right back, and we'll start mixing our paints here. All right, we're going to get started. We're going to start mixing some colors, and we'll see. I think the first thing we should do is let's put the labels in the in our palette spaces here that we have on our paper. This way we don't lose track of our colors. So I'm going to use this again, and I'm going to set it up over here across from me on my art table, and I'll just use that for the quick. So here we have alizarin crimson, next we have cadmium red, and then next we have cadmium orange. And then cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow. And then I think I skip a space here. I'll go right over here to cad yellow lemon. Cadmium yellow lemon. That's a cool lemon, a cool color, a cool yellow. It would be toward the green side versus the red. What's next here? Yellow ochre. Yellow ochre. And raw sienna. Kind of like a lighter, more transparent yellow ochre. And raw sienna, raw umber, when I first started, I used to do it in pencil, and this way if I had a problem where I made a mistake, I would just erase it. And then, I'm so used to my colors now, I probably won't mix these up as I'm going along, because I'm just kind of so used to it. Writing out my colors and using my colors all the time. But if you wanted to do it in pencil, like these here, and then once you have them all 100% correct, then you can draw over the top of your pencil lines with your magic marker if you want, or a pen, or you could even erase it a little bit so you can write over the top of it. Might look a little better too. And then you can just, once you're done, you can erase. But you'd have to do everything in pen, really. If you're going to use an eraser, you'd have to do all of this in magic marker too. The palette tray, and then all the wells here, the paint wells, you'd have to do everything in pen. I did it in pencil. You'd have to do it in pen though before you start erasing anything. So, but this works okay. Raw umber. I just take my time. I'm just taking my time here. Raw umber. So I'm going very slowly and carefully. Raw umber, burnt sienna, and then after burnt sienna is burnt umber. umber, and then after burnt umber is olive green, a warm green, olive green, toward the brown side versus the blue. Olive green. And then after olive green, I have, I noticed something here. I use sap green a lot nowadays. This was probably before I started using sap green, so you could put sap green in here somewhere. What I like to do is, and you can do this yourself, let me see if I have one here. Here it is. You can add extra wells to your palette like this. So you can buy these individually online at any art store or online, or Amazon I think has them too. These are individual wells you can buy, small ones or large ones. And you can buy these and then double stick tape them into your palette so you can add additional colors to your palette. So here you can see I have my sap green in between my chromium of oxide. So somewhere along the line I put a new color in. So you can add in your color anywhere you want, but I would put your sap green in after the olive green and then go to the viridian green. I think that's the best way. And then maybe towards the end of the palette, you can leave this. So let's do that. Let's take Payne's Gray and Ivory Black and we'll put it down over here with an extra paint well that we purchase. So let's adjust it now so we don't get confused on things here. So let's do that. Let's make this a full. I erase that. Get my pencil. And I'm just going to make this the full color. And then we'll make this sap green here. So let's do that because we use sap green all the time. Sap green. And then we'll go right next to sap green. Olive green, burnt umber, olive green, sap green. Let's go with viridian green. I think we're going to have just the right amount when we're at our final last paint well here. So sap green and then viridian. Viridian, and I always call it, I say viridian green just so people that aren't used to watercolors, maybe people that are new, but viridian is green, and but I'll always say viridian green. Cerulean, same thing. It's cerulean is cerulean. I call it cerulean blue. I think, I'm not sure what it says on the paint tube. Cerulean blue, cobalt blue is next. Cobalt blue. And after cobalt blue, we have French ultramarine blue. French ultramarine blue. After French ultramarine blue, we have Prussian blue. That's a really cool blue with green in it. Prussian blue. And then we have mineral violet. Okay, so I don't know how we wound up with, oh, I know what happened. I left out chromium of oxide, which I use occasionally here and there. I really like that color. It's like a green, a very opaque green, but I don't have it here. So we can stick to the original plan of leaving it with the two blacks over here. So we'll just do 1 and 2 like that. And we'll say this one's Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray. And this one's Ivory Black. And there we have it. We have all of our colors. And then if I want, I can say, well, I'll put in a paint tray over here by the greens. I'm going to put an extra paint tray with chromium of oxide. And then maybe we might want another color that we maybe use on a very frequent basis. Maybe a leaf green too. Leaf green is really beautiful, so we'll try that one too. Maybe we'll put there leaf green. These would be additional colors. All right, so I'm going to take my time and mix using these colors, the Prang Oval 16 colors. We're going to fill these all in and mix up the colors carefully. I'll do it carefully, methodically, going from warm colors to cool colors. And let's start out here. So let's do our alizarin crimson. So alizarin crimson, I think, is pretty much close to this. I don't think we have to do much to this. That to me looks pretty close to an alizarin crimson. So I'm just going to start out right here and say, wow, the Prang set has a good alizarin crimson right out of the palette. Perfect, looks good. I don't think we have to do anything with that. Cadmium red, let's try cadmium red. What I'll do is not to confuse things too much. Once we have our color mixed, I'm just going to, maybe I'll leave it out. That might be better to do. Let me leave it in the palette and just see how it goes. So, how about cadmium red? Let's go over here and try this. Cadmium red. That looks pretty good. That looks cadmium red. I would say maybe a little bit of the alizarin crimson might. How about a little bit of orange mixed in there too? I think that looks pretty good. So I just added a little bit of orange to my next color here, which is pretty much a cadmium red. It looks very close to a cadmium red. Could be a little more orange, I think. And you can experiment with these colors too and see what you think. Okay, all right. We have that cadmium red, so I think that looks good. Now we're going to mix cadmium orange. I think this is, that looks like cadmium orange. This might be like cadmium orange. And I'm just going to fill in here. That is, I would say that's a good cadmium orange. This would be maybe a cadmium orange light. Let's try that. Cadmium yellow. See, now I don't have a cad orange light, so we could take our pen and put in here. Or we can always use a we could use this and some white tape. Let's call this cadmium orange light. And then let's call this cadmium yellow. So cadmium lemon, this will be our cadmium orange light. Then we're going to, I always rinse off my brush. I always mention I rinse off my brush and dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel or tissue. This way I'm not flooding the palette with too much water. So this is going to be cadmium yellow. Cadmium lemon yellow's up here, and that's really what this is. This is like a lemony yellow, so let's put that up here first. Is that okay? We're kind of skipping over something, but we'll keep a track of it. Okay, cadmium lemon yellow. That's a lemon yellow. Very, very cool yellow. And how about cadmium yellow? Cadmium yellow is probably the lemon yellow mix with a little bit of orange. I think that looks good. It's the cadmium lemon with just a touch of the cadmium orange light mixed in it. A warm yellow, like that. Okay, now we're gonna do yellow ochre. How are we gonna do yellow ochre? I would use, let's just try this, see how this works. We'll take some of our cadmium lemon yellow, which is this color, straight, and I'll rinse off my brush, tap off a little bit of water, and just go with a tiny bit of brown, burnt umber we call that, but it's pretty much a brown, and I think that looks good. That looks like a yellow ochre. So it's the brown and the yellow mixed here, these two. A little more yellow than the brown. We don't want to go too dark. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of that. That looks good, yellow ochre. Okay, that looks fine. So now we have our yellow ochre. So we're just, as you can see, we're just fine-tuning these colors in this palette to kind of, you know, really get it exact if we want to mix a color. Like if you see me using a color in one of my paintings and I'm using this palette and you say, oh, that looks a lot like yellow ochre, well then you know you just have to add these two, the brown and the yellow together, and about half and half mix, and you get the yellow ochre. Then raw sienna. Raw sienna is probably a little bit lighter, more transparent, so we'll go with the raw sienna, which is lighter and more transparent. So I'm using a little more water and watering down this mix. Okay, raw umber. Let's see now. Raw umber would be, I think a raw umber is going to be like raw sienna, just darker, sort of like a yellow ochre. I think if we mix like the yellow ochre again, so I'm going to just rinse, or take my, I'm just going to clean up the palette a little bit, and let's go with the yellow ochre, which is yellow and brown. Okay, we're making a raw umber, and I think it has a touch of green in it. So let me see if I can add a little bit of green to this. Brown, a little bit of green, a little more green. That looks pretty good, so I would call that raw umber. Maybe even a little more green. The only thing you have to really be careful of is the paints are running into each other. The easiest way, we'll do this from going forward now, is you would either have to blow dry as you go each of your swatches in your palette, or you can leave space in between each of the paint wells as we're painting it. I think that'll be the better way to go. So we'll do that. So burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is going to be, I think we're going to use brown and cadmium red. All right, that looks pretty good. Burnt sienna. I'm going to leave a white space in here now, just so that they don't leak and flow into the other side. And you can experiment a little more, try to get them, let them dry. Hey everybody, just a quick informational. I'm really excited. I've been invited to the Thousand Island Arts Center to teach a workshop this summer. It's August 9th, 10th, and 11th, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it's a daytime workshop, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're going to have an absolutely fantastic time. I'm going to put up the itinerary in just a second, too, as well. But I wanted you to have the Thousand Island Arts Center phone number so you can call to register. Or you can also register online. That's up to you. Their phone number is 315-686-4123. Again, their phone number is 315-686-4123. Or you can also register and look up all the information online at TIARTSCENTER.org. Again, their website is TIARTSCENTER.org. I'll put the itinerary up here so you can I'll scroll it. I'm not going to read it. I'll just kind of scroll it up so you can kind of see the class description. And you can look this up online too. I encourage everybody to look for the brochure. If you go to the website, you'll see a brochure button. You click on that brochure button, you'll see my course, as well as other courses if you can't happen to make these dates, but you still want to take a watercolor class or watercolor course and workshop. And there's also an online course for watercolor artists. So if you're interested in doing online watercolor courses, they have those as well. That's something this is a great resource, everyone, for your watercolor art. I know some of you mentioned that you wanted to inquire about online art and watercolor painting classes. I'm not doing them right now. I'm really looking forward to maybe in the future doing some online courses, but right now I'm just not geared up for that right now. So they have them though for those that want to do online courses. But just a great resource, and beautiful historic area, beautiful scenery, water and boats everywhere, beautiful architecture, shopping. There's museums. So that's the itinerary. And I hope you'll all make it out to the workshop. And again, we're going to have a great time, tons of fun drawing and painting in watercolor. So I hope to see you there. And let's get back to our watercolor painting. I look at them, maybe see how close they are. Maybe you need to adjust it a little bit. Okay, burnt umber I think is going to be just straight brown like that. Okay, this is a lot of fun, isn't it? And it's good too. It helps our painterly skills with our brush, trying to be careful and paint in these color swatches. So I think we're really doing a good job here. Let's go with some olive green. I guess we could say olive green. We could take this green, and I think if we add a touch of brown, that's going to give us an olive green. And I think that does. That looks pretty good. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're going to do sap green. I'm going to take a break in a little bit. I'm always remembering, rinse off brush, take a little bit of water off the brush with a paper towel, tissue, sponge. I'm going to empty my water, start out with some fresh water. That can affect the colors too. As you're mixing your colors, remember to change your water, okay? Change your water a couple times, 2-3 times as you're doing this, because if the water gets really muddy, it might affect the subtlety of the colors as we're mixing them. So let's try sap green. I think this is pretty much a sap green here. So I'm going to carefully go over here and say, yeah, that looks pretty much like a sap green. Maybe a little bit of blue. I think that looks a little better with some blue in it. So I add a little bit of blue to the green, this green, to get my sap green. Maybe a little bit of brown to gray it down. And I'm just having fun with this. This is like the first time I've really done this, although I sometimes will mix and try to get things a little more closer if I'm painting a painting. But I don't think I really consciously made an effort to try to create these colors. So this is the first time I'm doing it, so it's maybe not perfect, but I think it's come along okay. Let's take a quick break. We're halfway through now, and you can kind of see we're really fine-tuning these colors, and we're getting the colors we need for our normal everyday palette that we use on my channel. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll come right back, and we'll finish up, okay? Be right back. Okay, so we're going to get started. Again, we're going to finish up on our paint swatches. I'm going to just start fresh again, so I'm just going to take all my paint here, and we'll start out fresh here. We'll clean up our palette, make sure we don't have too much paint there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we don't want too much mixes on there left. Okay, now let's start out. We're going to do the Viridian Green next. So this here is pretty much, I think, a Viridian Green. Perfect. That's like a bluish green. Beautiful color for like ocean scenes and water. Okay, now we're going to try to create cerulean blue. Let's go to this one, see how we're looking. Okay, that is definitely looks like cerulean blue, except cerulean blue tends to be a little more opaque, so maybe we'll gray this down with a little bit of brown. Yeah, I think that looks better. That looks like a cerulean blue. Kind of grayed down a little bit. Okay, perfect. See, we're really getting these, you know, pretty close to the colors we use on a consistent basis here. My normal palette, cobalt blue. Okay, let's see this cobalt blue. This is more like a French ultramarine blue, I think, this. So to get this to be a cobalt, cobalt tends to be lighter and a little more opaque. So let's take a little brown over here. That's not really looking good. That's not good. So let's stick with this over here again. I'm just going to say for cobalt blue, let's use this, which is kind of a French ultramarine. It's kind of to the red side for the blues. It's a little cooler, warmer blue. But cobalt's a little lighter and a little more opaque, but we can go light, really, really light here. And that will represent our cobalt blue, which is Then for our French ultramarine blue, I'm going to take this blue here. This might need a little spurts of water. Maybe a touch of red. Okay, so I added just a little bit of that red for the French ultramarine blue. I think we can use this just straight for French ultramarine blue, but I did add a little red to it, maybe just so that it's a little more different than the cobalt blue. Like we want a noticeable difference in the hue, or a little bit anyway. Prussian blue. Let's go with our blue here, Prussian blue. So we're going to use the French ultramarine blue to start with, and then we're going to add in maybe some Viridium and some of this here. Maybe this green might be even better. Okay, Prussian blue. Mineral violet. I think this is going to be our mineral violet straight, with no concerns at all. Just mineral violet. Okay. Now, maybe we're going to make a lavender here, so I want to use this color, so we'll say this is going to be lavender. And I think I'll mix in a little bit of blue with that too. So blue. We'll have lavender there. Leaf green. I think this is our leaf green right here. And then we have chromium of oxide. I would say chromium of oxide is like a leaf green with some brown in there. Maybe some yellow. I'm just going to experiment here and see if I can get chromium of oxide. It's pretty much a green, pretty opaque. And then we're going to have just two more, Payne's Gray and Ivory Black. So this is an Ivory Black, like we said. I'm going to rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit on the paper towel. This is our Ivory Black. That's a warm black. It's kind of, you know, like a black ink with some brown in there or some red, kind of like a warmer. I would say if you mix the burnt umber, like if you had Payne's Gray, and you wanted to make Payne's Gray into Ivory Black, you might add some burnt umber to it to try to warm it up a little bit. Now for Payne's Gray, we're going to take our Ivory Black and we're going to add some make it cooler with some blue. So we'll take some of our, what we're calling ivory black, it's a warm black, and then we're going to add a little bit of some blue to make it cooler. We could even do this, and that would be our Payne's gray. Okay, so we pretty much have a really good full palette that we would normally use on my channel. We're using our beginner's palette and just adjusting it a little bit, fine-tuning it to get some more colors mixed. This has 16 colors. We might have around 20 or more on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 approximately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So this has 16. We have 24 colors here. So we added some colors by mixing, of course, these here as we went along. So I hope you have fun with this. Hope you try to make a couple color charts on your own. Maybe try to do this one if you want to, if you find it helpful when we're doing our videos. And you might want to try one of the beginner videos, our extreme beginner series video paintings. And then you can just use this palette. And then just, you can even write out the colors that we mixed. You can watch this video at a slow pace and maybe write down the colors that I use to get to each of the. So it might be something like you might say for cadmium yellow, you can make like a cadmium yellow. I would say the easiest way to probably do it is to I'm trying to think of the easiest way to, you would just basically write down the color mixes that I mix as I'm going. So you might write down each one of these colors on a piece of paper, list them all out, and then I would go in the same order. So I would start with the alizarin crimson just like we did here. We started here and we went all the way around. And you might just do it, I think it's good to do it this way. You would have alizarin crimson, and then on a separate piece of paper, or you could even put it on this paper. Might be good to do it on a separate piece of paper first, so this way it's more neat. But you could do this. You could just list it out and say alizarin crimson, and you might even you could make these numbers. So you can make a separate page like this, like we have here. You could even do it this way and label it this way too. Label it so you can read it, just like we have our palettes set up. And then you might say you can designate this as color number 1, and then color number 2, and you can number these all. And then once you have these numbered, then you can just say, to get alizarin crimson, you mix number 1 and that's it. Alizarin crimson is number 1. Then we might say cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 and 5 equals number 4 and number 5. So that's how you can come up with your number system. You can number this palette, and then then this way you can always have this set across from you when you're painting, and you just say, oh, I got to do a cadmium yellow in my painting. Well, I'm using this palette. How do I get cadmium yellow? Oh yeah, 4 and 5. And you look at your chart and you'll have these numbered. You make a chart like this, again, with your palette, and you have these numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up, and then to 16. And then you can just do it that way, and then go through my video and just, figure out, what colors I'm using according to the numbers that you have. So you would make this first, make this chart first, number these all, and then when you're watching me create this video and do all these colors here, you would just carefully say, oh, Chris is using a 1 and a 3, a 4 or a 3. Over here he's using a 6 and a 7 or whatever it is. And then this way you have it. And then this way you wouldn't have to be doing too much like thinking about things if once you get used to it. Or you could even take these and mix your own colors. You could create another palette using this. You could take this paint out of here and mix your own paints and then create a palette just like this one with these paints. That's another way to do it too, or that could be a really interesting way to do it. I'm so used to mixing paints all the time, so I feel like I've been doing it for such a long time that I can just kind of do it quickly and sort of. But if you wanted to make your own palettes too and create, you know, your own colors, so you would create all of these colors and put it in a separate palette by mixing these, by taking them out and mixing them together. You could also do that too. That would be quite a project to do, but in any case, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you stopped by for this video. If anything, we've had fun. We've created a chart for ourselves for our palette. So this way we have a permanent record of our palette we're using and our colors and how we have them set up and the names of the colors. You can always bring this to an art supply store if you need colors, and you'll have all your colors listed out so you'll know which ones you need. You can make a list and you have your colors all set. And it's also good practicing. The painting in these swatches and mixing colors, and it's a real fun time. So have a great time with this. I hope you'll find it interesting to do, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.